Imagine walking on stage at the world's biggest gaming event, with millions of gamers watching around the world, and proudly announcing your brand new console would cost $599. That's exactly what Sony did in 2006 at E3. The audience didn't cheer, they gasped. Some even laughed. It was the gaming equivalent of telling people you've invented a new kind of pizza and then charging $600 for a single slice. And within hours, the internet roasted Sony for one of the boldest and dumbest announcements in gaming history. That single number, $599, almost killed PlayStation, and it gave Xbox the biggest win of its life. Here's the crazy part. Just a few years earlier, Sony had been untouchable. In the mid-90s, the original PlayStation stormed into a market dominated by Nintendo and Sega. Nobody expected Sony, a company better known for TVs and Walkmans, to actually beat the gaming giants. But the PlayStation had something new: CD technology, incredible 3D graphics, and a lineup of games like Crash Bandicoot, Tekken, and Final Fantasy that defined a whole generation. Suddenly, Nintendo's cartridges felt ancient. Then came the PlayStation 2, and Sony's dominance exploded. Launched in 2000, the PS2 quickly became a cultural phenomenon. It wasn't just a game console, it was also a DVD player at a time when DVDs were the future of movies. For many families, buying a PS2 felt like getting two devices in one, and that value helped it sell more than 150 million units worldwide, making it the best-selling console of all time. Sony wasn't just winning, they were the king of gaming. And when you're at the top for that long, you start to think you can't lose. Spoiler alert, that's when you usually do. But the mid-2000s were different. Sony wasn't alone anymore. Microsoft had entered the fight with the original Xbox. That first console didn't crush Sony, but it proved Microsoft was serious about gaming. By 2005, the Xbox 360 was on the market. It was cheaper, it launched earlier, and it came with one killer feature: Xbox Live, the first real online gaming service where players could connect, compete, and trash talk each other's moms at 3 a.m. At the same time, Nintendo decided to completely change the game. Forget power, they built the Wii, a fun, family-friendly console with motion controls. And at just $249, it was affordable to everyone, from kids to grandparents. Sony should have been nervous. Instead, they got cocky. E3 2006. Fans were buzzing. The PlayStation 3 was hyped as the future of entertainment. It had the Blu-ray drive, the ambitious cell processor, and graphics power that promised to blow away the competition. On paper, it looked like the future of gaming. Sony executives believed people would pay anything to get it. And then came the reveal. The 60GB PlayStation 3 would cost $599. The room went silent. Then came awkward laughter. It was $200 more than the Xbox 360, more than double the Nintendo Wii. That's not a price tag, that's a ransom note. Gamers weren't excited, they were shocked. The internet roasted Sony with memes overnight. $599 became a punchline, repeated so often it turned into the unofficial soundtrack of gaming rage. And the most memorable thing about the event wasn't even the games. It was a developer on stage yelling about a giant enemy crab during a demo. Within hours, $599 and giant crab became running jokes across forums. Sony thought they were delivering a victory speech. Instead, they just set themselves up for humiliation. The damage was instant. Developers struggled with Sony's overly complex cell processor. Launch games looked weak, and the Blu-ray drive that Sony thought would be a selling point just made the console more expensive. Meanwhile, Xbox 360 had Halo 3, Gears of War, and Xbox Live. The Wii had Wii Sports, a game bundled for free that became a cultural phenomenon and sold over 80 million copies. Sony's console was powerful, but Xbox and Nintendo's consoles were fun, affordable, and accessible. It's like showing up to a water fight with a high-tech flamethrower. Sure, it's powerful, but everyone else is just having fun while you're burning down the backyard. For the first time in a decade, Sony wasn't just losing sales, they were losing the conversation. Stores actually had unsold PS3s sitting on shelves, unthinkable after the PS2 era. Sony reported billions in losses from the PS3. In Japan, where PlayStation had always been dominant, the the Wii outsold it by a landslide. In the US, the Xbox 360 was seen as the cooler, more connected choice, and globally, the Wii dominated family living rooms. At one point, analysts questioned if PlayStation could even survive. Think about that. The company that had sold 150 million PS2s was suddenly being asked, are you guys okay? The PS2 had made Sony feel invincible, but the PS3's launch showed just how quickly a giant can stumble. But here's the twist. Sony didn't quit. They cut the price, released a slimmer, cheaper PS3, and most importantly, they bet everything on exclusives. Uncharted brought cinematic storytelling to consoles. God of War 3 pushed action games to new heights. Little Big Planet let players build entire worlds. And The Last of Us, released late in the PS3's life cycle, became one of the most critically acclaimed games ever made. Slowly, gamers came back, and by the end of its life cycle, the PS3 had sold around 87 million units, almost tying the Xbox 360. What started as a disaster ended as a recovery story. It's kind of like failing a test, but then somehow still graduating with honors because you aced the finals. So what can we learn from Sony's $599 mistake? First, even the strongest brands can't ignore price. Customers don't care about your futuristic hardware if they can't afford it. Second, arrogance kills. Sony thought their dominance would last forever. It didn't. And third, when everything else fails, content is king. The only thing that saved Sony was its exclusive games. Without them, the PlayStation brand might have died in 2008. Or worse, we'd all be playing the Nintendo Wii U. The PS3's $599 disaster is remembered as one of the biggest fails in gaming history. But it also gave Xbox its best chance to shine, and forced Sony to rebuild stronger than ever. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and drop a comment on which brand blunder or success story you'd like me to cover next. Your idea might just become the next video.